Hello and welcome to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of college basketball. Game 2 of the regular season tipped off in Mackey this past Friday for the Boilermakers and was full of its ups and downs for both sides. But without further ado, let's run it. Was not an offensive masterpiece for either team in this one, with Purdue coming out with a convincing 22-point victory, but with a final score of only 72-50 against Northern Kentucky. This game was never really in doubt, but I can't say I was thrilled with it either. It was not the prettiest game, and this one came at a tough cost for the outlook of this season. But a win's a win, and there's plenty to take a look at, so let's get to it. Purdue came into this game looking to build momentum in the non-conference, building up to their showdown against number 2 Alabama this Friday, while Northern Kentucky came looking to stir the pot and cause some chaos. I think it's safe to say this game didn't go like either team was planning. The opening minute brought immediate heartbreak for Purdue fans across the country when Daniel Jacobson, our 7'4" true freshman starting center, went down awkwardly after a collision on Purdue's just second offensive possession. We found out midday Sunday that that injury was a fractured tibia, for which Jacobson got immediate surgery on and will be done for the season with a projected 4 to 6 month recovery. Silver lining, he went down early enough in the season that he'll be able to medically redshirt and hold on to his fourth year of eligibility. But that's a major hit to the team this year, and we'll talk more about that later. Minus that major blow, Purdue got off to a scorching start with Braden Smith, Jakari Harris, and Fletcher Loyer all hitting their first threes within the first 3 minutes of the game. And before you could blink, the Boilers jumped out to an 18-4 lead in the first 5 minutes. But similar to last game, the hot shooting wouldn't last, and slowly but surely, the Norse crawled their way back throughout the course of the first half, cutting Purdue's lead to 5 with just over 7 minutes to go in the half, 21-16. The shots just weren't falling for either team. After 4 threes to start the game, Purdue went just 2 for 8 from deep for the rest of the first half, and Northern Kentucky was right there with them, going 2 for 10 from beyond the arc. The Boilers' offense woke up for just a bit right before the end of the half to extend their lead back out to a much more healthy 37-24 before the halftime buzzer sounded. It took only 10 seconds into the second half for Fletcher Loyer to strike first with his third three of the night. But the second half was more of the same as the first half in terms of scoring. Purdue steadily outscored the Norse with their clearly superior talent and shooting, but that's not to say that Northern Kentucky didn't have their chances. Purdue didn't exactly dominate this game when it came to controlling opportunities. Time and time again, the Norse would get multiple attempts in a possession to get shots to fall, and they just didn't. It was not their night, or else this game could have been a lot closer than it was. I'm still not going to complain that much about a 22-point win, but let's just say I've seen much more convincing 20-plus point wins for Purdue than this one. Heading into the top performers, we still have Braden Smith at the top for Purdue with only 11 points. The fact that that's a quiet scoring game for him shows you how good of a player he is on just 4 of 9 shooting, with 2 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 steals, and he kept it down to 3 turnovers in this game in 32 minutes. Behind him, but leading the team in scoring, once again is Fletcher Loyer, who has been off to an amazing start to this season, with 16 points on 6 of 9 shooting, 4 for 5 from 3. In these first 2 games, he's been shooting 70% from beyond the arc, 7 for 10, and adding 1 rebound, 4 assists, 1 steal, and 1 block in 31 minutes. For Northern Kentucky, you kind of got to pick what stat line you value more because they're not all fantastic. But we'll start off with Sam Vinson with 8 points on 3 of 7 shooting, 1 for 2 from 3, with 6 rebounds, 2 assists, and 3 steals in 28 minutes. That was kind of the highlight for them. Behind him, we have Josh Dilling. He had 7 points on 3 of 13 shooting and 1 for 7 from 3. So he was chucking it from all over the court. But he added 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and a steal of his own in 31 minutes. For the honorable mentions, you have TKR for Purdue once again. And you'll find that Braden Fletcher and TKR are going to be the vast majority of these top threes between top performers and honorable mentions for Purdue. They're really coming into their own this year, and the majority of the offense is going to run through them. But for TKR, he ended up with 14 points on a very efficient 4 for 5 shooting, 6 of 8 from the free throw line, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists in only 24 minutes. So he got some significant rest time in this one. And for Northern Kentucky, they have Trey Robinson with another 8 points on just 1 of 4 shooting, 6 rebounds, and 1 assist in 26 minutes. Heading into the key team points for Purdue, The big one. How big is losing Jacobson? Daniel Jacobson going down for the season hurts significantly for this team, but the question is how much does it hurt Purdue's chances at competing at the highest level this season? I think that it without a doubt makes Purdue worse. Let's just start with that. He showed serious potential throughout the exhibition games and the season opener. In this game, we got to see a bit of a preview of how Purdue may try to make up for Jacobson's minutes in the future. Burgess and First each saw 12 minutes off the bench, and Berg saw 17. Now, the one thing that we didn't see that we may see going forward is TKR at the 5. Painter has shown and has talked about the fact that they may need to see it and that he wants to see it. But whether they actually do that, we will see. But these three are, as of right now, the most likely candidates for the increased minutes at the 5. But on the box score, these three didn't play too poorly, all things considered. Combined, they put up a line of 19 points and 14 rebounds on 9 of 15 shooting, with 5 fouls, and 3 of those coming from Berg. There are at least 3 blown layups from First and Burgess throughout the second half that could have made their stats and the score even better. The main concern, rebounding. Which brings me to my next point, rebounding the basketball. Don't get me wrong, Northern Kentucky is by no means a short team. They only had 3 guys see minutes on the court that were under 6'4". But I was getting very frustrated watching Purdue's pathetic attempts at rebounding for most of this game. Northern Kentucky ended up with 15 offensive rebounds in this one, and only one guy who played 6 minutes didn't end up with an offensive board. Everyone else got in on the fun. It was a team effort, which it clearly wasn't for Purdue. When it came to defensive rebounding, other than Berg with 6, it was very even across the board for Purdue. But what that means is there were 7 guys with just 2 defensive rebounds each. This was one of the few games that I've watched myself that Purdue didn't win the rebounding battle. But they didn't lose it either, I guess. It was tied at 33 apiece. But I'm sure this will be a focal point of their practices heading into the next game because it was very disappointing to watch. And lastly, we'll go to bench production. Due to Jacobson's injury, bench front court players obviously got significant minutes, but they weren't the only ones who saw some solid minutes off the bench for the Boilers. With a significant lead for most of the game, outside of that little stretch in the first half, Painter went to his bench to see what they could provide and gave his big 3 some valuable rest. 21 minutes from Colvin, 16 from Cox, and 16 from Heidi, and in all honesty, it wasn't their best showing. Colvin struggled from deep, only going 1 for 5. Cox didn't get a single shot to fall, and sadly, Heidi was as disappointing as ever as he continues to be a no-show to start this year. These 3 were a pretty significant part of the reason Purdue didn't reach the 80 mark, and they're going to need to be better against better opponents, even if they're in more limited minutes, because Braden and Fletcher are only going to be able to do so much on a night-to-night basis. But heading over to Northern Kentucky, it starts with shot making. Plain and simple, Northern Kentucky just needed to make some more shots. They had their opportunities, open ones too. They just couldn't get them to fall. 30% from the floor, 21% from 3 on 23 attempts. That's not going to get it done against almost any opponent, much less one like the talent with Purdue. They gave themselves even more opportunities by crashing the glass so hard, so you got to get a couple more of those to fall to make the game a little bit more competitive. Secondly, it's team rebounding. I've talked about this a fair amount through the various topics earlier, so I'll keep this rather short, but this is a seriously tall team that uses that to their advantage to hit the glass hard. 15 offensive rebounds against a historically good rebounding team like Purdue is impressive, and they've got to be proud of that, and that's a part of the game that will translate well against every team they play against this season. And lastly, it's turnovers. Purdue typically isn't known as a team that turns teams over very much. It's not really their style of on-ball defense. So for the Norse to end up with 13 turnovers and tie the turnover battle with Purdue is definitely disappointing for them. Sloppy play, bad passes. They just didn't seem like they had a solid offensive identity or knew what they wanted to be running all the time. 4 out of 5 starters had 2 turnovers each, so almost everyone shares the blame for that. But those turnovers turned into 11 points for Purdue, and I'm sure those are 11 points they very much wish they could get back. But Purdue heads into the new week with 1-1 Yale coming into town on Monday at 8 p.m. as they continue to try to iron out the kinks and get themselves running full throttle before the Crimson Tide come knocking. As for Northern Kentucky, they'll continue their search for their first win on Thursday when Nichols comes to visit in Highland Heights. But that's all I've got for today. Another game in the books and many more around the corner. So stay tuned to the channel. More recaps to be made and the return of one of my favorite self-created series on the horizon. Let us know what you think about the changes to this lineup with Jacobson done and what it means for the race to yet another Big Ten title for Purdue. But if you want more from us, like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, I'm out.